The fire crackled in the center of the desert camp. The cold wind blew over the sands, making the tents flap like wings in the night. Around the fire, 6 alien children sat in a circle, their eyes wide and curious. An elder, old and slow-moving, wrapped in dark red robes, leaned forward. "Do you know the tale of the Terrans?" The elder asked in a hushed voice. The children leaned in. One whispered, "The monsters from the stars?" The elder smiled faintly. "Monsters, no. Something far worse, something forgotten." The Zalari Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for over 5,000 cycles. They had crushed rebellions, absorbed thousands of species, and controlled the largest trade and military network in known space. But among all the records in their vast data archives, only one race remained shrouded in silence. Humans. They were never officially recorded. Their name existed only in whispers, stories passed down in the shadows of old civilizations. No real proof, no known planet, no confirmed artifacts, just fear. On a deep space science ship orbiting a dying star, a discovery was made. A low-frequency signal, ancient and broken, pulsed once every 30 seconds. At first, it was ignored. Signals were common in dead sectors. But then a young Zalari communication officer heard something strange in the static. A voice. A human voice. Captain Vel Rin stood silently as the engineers replayed the signal. The voice was calm, male, and old, ancient, even. It spoke in an alien tongue, yet the ship's AI translated it instantly. "We are coming home." Silence fell across the control room. "That can't be. It's just a hoax," muttered one officer. "No one speaks that language anymore." Another whispered, "Run the origin again." The captain ordered. The ship's AI responded. "Signal origin, Deep Sector 7F, edge of the Lost Void. Estimated age, 3,102 cycles." Captain Vel Rin's voice trembled slightly. "That sector hasn't been visited since the old wars." Back on the desert world of Raxos, the elder continued his story. "They were not born killers," he said slowly. "But they became something more. We attacked them long ago. We feared their minds, their machines, so we burned their skies. We shattered their world." One child asked, "Then why do you look afraid now, elder?" The elder's eyes reflected the flames. "Because nothing stays buried forever." At the central data core on the capital world of Zel Prime, High Archivist Luro X was called in. The footage was short, only 6 seconds long, taken from an old deep probe drone that vanished near the Lost Void 1,800 years ago. The video showed a planet, broken and burned, a world of ash and black stone. But in the last second, something moved, something massive. A shape rose through the clouds, blocking the sun. And then, static. The drone never returned. The file had been locked behind a forgotten encryption key. Terra. Rel X, a young Zalari pilot, watched the footage again and again. He had heard the stories. Everyone had. But seeing it felt real. "Captain, let me investigate," he said firmly. Vel Rin hesitated. "It's not real. They're myths." "What if they're not?" Rel X leaned forward. "We built an empire on ashes. Maybe we forgot who we burned." After a long silence, the captain nodded. "Take a stealth scout. Don't engage. Don't be seen. Just confirm." The scout ship's silent whisper launched within hours. It cut through the dark like a blade of light, heading toward the edge of known space, toward the signal. Rel X sat alone in the cockpit, staring at the star map. The deeper he flew, the stranger things became. Communication faded. Lights flickered. His eye struggled to keep connection with the Empire. Then 3 days into the void, he found something. Floating in space were wrecks. Not asteroid wrecks. Not old warships. These were alien. Zalari vessels, yes, but also dozens of others. Ships that had gone missing centuries ago. Their hulls had been split open. No signs of battle. Only precision cuts, surgical dissections. Ralex flew closer, turning on his ship's lights. Then he saw it. Carved into the side of a broken ship was a single word, burned deep into the metal: remember. Panic rose in his chest. He turned to leave, but his ship stopped moving. No alarms, no warning. Just stillness. His engines powered down. Then came the light, bright, white, and cold. It covered his ship, pouring in through every window. Then, silence. Back on Zell Prime, Captain Vel Rin waited for a signal that never came. The silent whisper was lost. The signal location erased from their system. Cover it, the Admiral said. Mark it a data error. He never left. Vel Rin's hands shook. And if he comes back? The Admiral stared into the stars. Then we pray. They've forgotten too. But they had not forgotten. Far beyond the void, in a hidden sector surrounded by dead suns, a world spun slowly. Its sky was black with ships. Human ships. They were old, built from stolen parts, from broken enemy machines, from dead worlds. Yet they moved with power and purpose. A single station floated above the planet, tall, sharp, like a blade pointed at the galaxy. Inside, a woman in dark armor watched Ralex through a glass window. He was asleep or unconscious. Wires ran through his head. A voice spoke from behind her. Another one? She nodded. They sent him to check the signal. Did he see too much? Enough. The voice chuckled. Then send him back. Ralex woke up suddenly. He was still in his cockpit, drifting. His engines powered on. No memory. No data. No logs. Only one thing had changed. A message had been carved into his ship's dashboard. You destroyed our world. But we survived. Now we remember. He turned around quickly. Behind him, in the distance, space lit up like fire. Hundreds of ships. All coming through. Human warships. Space was silent again. The scout ship's silent whisper drifted just outside the lost void. Inside, Ralex stared at the message scratched into his dashboard. His breathing was shallow. His hands trembled. You destroyed our world. But we survived. Now we remember. His memories were a blur. He didn't remember writing anything. He didn't remember anything. One moment, he was near the signal. Then nothing. Now he was back. But something had changed. Back on Zell Prime, Captain Vel Rin paced inside the Imperial Command Tower. The Admiral and senior intelligence officers watched as Ralex's ship returned through the hangar gates. The pilot was alive. Physically unharmed. No wounds. No signs of attack, but he was silent. He didn't speak during landing. He didn't answer questions. Only one word escaped his lips before he was taken for medical checkup. Terrans. The word made the Admiral's throat tighten. Did he say Terrans? One officer asked. No, he remembered, Vel Rin said quietly. That's worse. In a dark, cold medical chamber, Ralex lay on a metal bed. He was strapped down lightly for observation. The lights above flickered slightly. Dr. Zarnville entered, a veteran Zalari with silver skin and tired eyes. He'd seen soldiers after wars, after trauma. This felt different. Ralex, he said calmly, holding a small scanner. You've returned from the signal zone. We're here to help. Ralex didn't move. His eyes stared straight at the ceiling. I saw it, he whispered. They're real. Who? The doctor asked. The forgotten ones. The Terrans. They're awake. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, a meeting was held in the High Senate of Zalari. The capital was filled with silence as the upper council viewed the replayed signal. The same old voice. The same cold message. We are coming home. Senator Irox, one of the oldest in the Empire, stood. This message, he said slowly, is more than a warning. It's a declaration. Declaration of what? Asked Senator Vale. Irox turned, his eyes grim. Return. Zilari historians were activated for the first time in centuries. Ancient scrolls, digital ruins, and forbidden records were unlocked. They pulled data from the Deep Archive, a place only visited during species-level emergencies. There, hidden behind 6 security layers, they found it, a single classified report from over 3,000 cycles ago. Code name, Project Black Sun. Inside were images, old and corrupted. A blue planet burning from orbit. Human warships exploding while still firing. A child, covered in ash, staring at a falling sky, and one final recorded line: "We thought we erased them. We were wrong." The Empire had once tried to wipe out humans, but they failed. They didn't realize it. They never checked what was left behind in the ruins. In a secret military installation on the moon of V Hotel, Admiral Zarn stood inside a black room filled with holograms. Floating in the center was a 3D map of the galaxy. He watched the red dots, human ships spreading slowly from the outer void toward inhabited systems. "They're not rushing," he muttered. "They're not attacking. They're positioning," said the tech beside him. "They've waited centuries. They're not in a hurry." Admiral Zarn nodded grimly. "They're patient. And patient enemies are the deadliest kind." Back in the medical bay, Ralex finally spoke again. "I didn't see them directly," he said, "but I heard them. I felt them." Dr. Zarn leaned forward. "Felt what?" Ralex turned his eyes, dark and distant. "Anger, but not blind anger. Cold, controlled, forged by time." He swallowed hard. "They didn't forget us. They remembered every detail." Suddenly, the medical lights dimmed. An alert rang out in the command tower. A new signal was detected, stronger, faster, clearer. It wasn't coming from deep space this time. It was coming from inside Zilari space. The message was short. "This time we speak first." Attached was a data burst, coordinates, unknown language scripts, and a rotating symbol. It took only 5 seconds for the symbol to be identified. A circle with 3 stars above it, the lost insignia of the United Terran Republic. "Impossible," whispered Captain Velrin. "That government died with Earth." A nearby AI translated the symbol. "We never died. We adapted." Panic began to spread in the inner circles of power. The Emperor was informed. All defense sectors were put on high alert. But it was too late. At that very moment, across 12 Zilari-controlled sectors, power grids began to shut down. Satellites stopped responding. Communications went silent. No weapons were fired. No explosions were seen. Only stillness, like someone had pressed pause on the galaxy. In the shadows of Sector 12, inside a mining colony, children looked up at the sky. A strange glow appeared among the stars. Not fire, not lightning, just presence. Then a sound, a soft, deep hum, like a song sung by a dead planet. It echoed in their bones. One child asked, "Mama, is that thunder?" His mother held him close. "No, baby. That's war." On the Terran flagship Oblivions, Mercy, General Kara Miles, stood at the viewing window. Her eyes were calm. Her armor was scratched from age, not battle. Beside her stood a small AI drone, glowing with blue light. "Zilari systems are open," the AI reported. "They never upgraded. They're firewalls. They're centuries behind us." "Don't break them yet," Kara said. "Why not?" The AI asked. She smiled slightly. "Let them wonder. Let them fear. Then let them choose." Back in the Zilari command tower, Admiral Zarn slammed his hand on the table. "This is a digital invasion. Why haven't we retaliated?" "Because," a voice replied, "we don't know where to strike." Everyone turned. It was Ralex standing in the doorway. "You can't strike shadows," he said. "You can't fight ghosts," Velrin frowned. "You saw them." "What do they want?" Ralex hesitated. Then he said, "Not conquest. Not planets. They want the truth. Across the Empire, broadcasts were interrupted. Terran signals took over. Every screen, every speaker, every device, the same message played. In every language, we were the first to dream of stars. You made us into nightmares, but we do not come as monsters. We come as memory, and memory does not forget. On. A distant farming world, a grandmother fell to her knees. She remembered the old days, her people's stories of fire and blood. Of Earth's last scream, she wept. They're back, she whispered. The ghosts are real. Inside the main Senate hall, arguments turned to chaos. Some called for peace. Others demanded war. One young senator, barely past his training, stood and yelled, "We killed their home. And now we act shocked that they're angry?" A fist slammed into the desk. Another senator roared, "They should have stayed dead." Silence. Followed. Then, a voice from the shadows, "They didn't die. We just stopped looking." In deep space, Terran ships began to appear more clearly. Still no attacks, still no invasions. Just presence, a show of strength, a reminder. They flew silently over abandoned moons. Through forgotten wormholes, past old battlefields were there. Ancestors had died. They carried no flags. Only memory. And on every ship, burned into metal like a silent prayer, we remember Earth. Word spread quickly. Planets began to prepare. Some prepared weapons, others prepared peace. But one thing became clear. To everyone in the galaxy, the forgotten race had returned. And this time, they were not the ones in the shadows. Darkness covered the Zalari system of Velktar, a cold mining world at the edge of their empire. It was a quiet place, filled with machines and workers who had long forgotten war or glory. But today, silence was broken. A siren began to wail. Red lights flashed across the skies. And then, they appeared. 3 ships, black, silent, and massive, drifted above the mining colony. They made no sound. They gave no signal. But everyone below felt it. The Terrans had arrived. Inside the control tower, Overseer Grexval shouted into, "The comes, identify yourselves. This is Zalari territory." No response. He repeated, louder, still nothing. Then, from one of the Terran ships, a single pod detached and descended. It landed softly just outside the control zone. Soldiers surrounded it, weapons aimed. The pod hissed open. Inside was a body, a Zalari soldier, alive, but broken. Doctor units rushed in and scanned him. It was Lieutenant Jarn, who went missing over 40 years ago in a failed mission near the void. His body was thin, his eyes wide open. Burn marks covered his chest. A strange symbol was carved into his shoulder, witness. Back in the capital, the footage spread like wildfire. The Empire Council sat in stunned silence. "They returned one of ours," said a general. "He was missing for decades." Senator Vile narrowed his eyes. "Why bring him back now?" "Because they're making a point," replied Admiral Zarn. "They want us to know. They've been watching." General Caramiles stood aboard the Terran flagship Oblivion's Mercy. In front of her was a floating hologram showing every Zalari military base, every fleet movement, and every energy node. Her voice was calm but sharp. "They built an empire over our ashes. Now we remind them where those ashes came from." The eye beside her blinked. "Zalari response likely to be aggressive. Are we authorized to engage?" Kara nodded. "Not full war, but make the first move." An hour later, a cargo ship heading to Zalari moonbase Tryon K suddenly exploded. No missile detected. No heat signature. Just gone. Then 2 defense satellites shut down near Sector 18. Then a communication blackout across 4 colonies. The Empire panicked, but no lives were taken. Not yet. "This is psychological warfare," said Captain Velrin, watching the chaos unfold. "They're telling us they could destroy us any second. But they're choosing not to." Ral-X, standing behind him, added, "They want to talk, but they want us afraid first." "Why?" Velrin asked. Ral-X's voice was soft. "Because they remember the last time we talked. 3,000 years ago. The Zalari had met humanity for the first time. At first, it was peaceful. Trade, culture, curiosity. Then, fear. The Zalari saw what humans were becoming: fast learners, creative minds, machines smarter than AI, soldiers who didn't fear death. So, the Empire acted. They wiped out Earth, or so they thought. In the center of the Lost Void, inside a hidden base called Fort Silence, a Terran war council gathered. Holograms of old battles flickered around them. Maps, faces, names, all erased from history. All remembered by the Terrans. Kara Miles stood in front of her commanders. "This time," she said, "we do not wait for them to strike." A commander nodded. "Do we initiate first contact?" Kara looked around, then said, "Yes, send the envoy." Hours later, in the Zalari capital, a small black ship landed silently in the middle of the Senate Square. No warning. No resistance. The guards were frozen. Their weapons jammed. From the ship, a single figure stepped out. A human. Not armored. Not armed. He wore a long coat, gray from dust. His face calm and unreadable. Security drones scanned him. Nothing. No weapons. No tech. And yet, the entire Senate chamber watched in fear. He walked into the Hall of Power without being stopped. He spoke just one sentence. "Your war never ended. You just stopped counting bodies." Admiral Zarn and Captain Velrin arrived quickly. They stood face to face with the human envoy. "Why now?" Velrin asked. The human looked him straight in the eye. "Because we were children before. Now we are memory." Zarn stepped forward. "What do you want?" The human's voice was low. "Truth, and the acknowledgement of what you did. Earth, the burnings, the silence." Velrin tried to speak, but the human raised a hand. "We are not here to beg. We are not here for revenge." "Then why are you here?" Zarn asked. "To show you what we became when you left us to die." In orbit above, Terran ships sent down live footage to every corner of the Zalari. Empire. Images of human cities in the void. Of children learning science beside war machines. Of planets rebuilt from ruin. Of fleets made from old enemy wrecks, repurposed into weapons of light. Then came the final message. "We survived your war. We outlived your silence. And now, we are not afraid." Back in the Senate, tension rose. Some senators screamed for war. Others saw wisdom in peace. But the fear was real. They had forgotten the Terrans. Now the Terrans had remembered everything. At a secret military lab, scientists studied the human envoy's body scans. No enhancements, no implants. Just human. But his brain activity, it's 5 times higher than ours. "How is that possible?" A low voice answered from the shadows. "They evolved where we thought they died." Suddenly, alarms rang across the Zalari space. Terran ships moved, but not toward military targets. They entered the skies of 5 forgotten slave worlds, old colonies the Empire had abandoned after using them. There, the Terrans dropped supplies. Medical aid and communication hubs. No weapons. Just help. And in every message, one line appeared. "We were like you once." The people on those broken worlds wept. They had never seen mercy from the Empire. Now, the forgotten race was giving it to them. On the Imperial news networks, public support began to shift, not toward war, but toward understanding. For the first time, the citizens of the Zalari Empire asked, "What if we were the villains?" In the capital, the human envoy stood to leave. Ilrin asked, "Will there be war?" The human paused. "Only if you choose it." Zarn asked, "And if we do?" The human's eyes turned cold. "Then you will see what 3,000 years of survival looks like." He walked away without a sound. His ship rose into the sky. And then he was gone. Back aboard Oblivion's Mercy, General Kara watched the footage. Did he deliver the message? I asked. She nodded. They're listening. Now, do you think they'll choose peace? Kara stared out at the stars. I don't know, she said. But we didn't survive this long just to kneel again. The next day, across the Zalari worlds, strange signals began to appear in people's dreams, soft voices, memories not there. Flashes of fire and hope. The Terrans weren't just using ships and weapons. They were using stories, and stories are the most powerful weapons of all. The stars above the Forgotten Zone shimmered coldly. Once, this region was marked as uninhabitable, cursed. Even the bravest Zalari ships avoided it. But now, it was full of movement. Terran ships moved like shadows, silent and precise. Around them, broken satellites and old shipwrecks floated like bones. In the center of this dark space, something massive stood. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't a station. It was Earth, burned, cracked, scarred. But not dead. General Kara Miles stood at the bridge of Oblivion's Mercy, eyes locked on the giant sphere. Home, she whispered. Her AI spoke softly. Atmosphere is 40% restored. Surface life confirmed. Civilian activity, high. How many generations has it been? She asked. 56, the AI replied. Since the fall. She nodded slowly. Time they saw what they failed to finish. On the Zalari side, panic turned to confusion. Earth was supposed to be destroyed, burned to dust. Now it glowed with lights, energy grids, even space elevators rising from the ground. It's impossible, said Captain Vel Rin. Admiral Zarn stared at the screen. No. It's worse. It's real. Inside the Zalari High Council, arguments exploded. How can Earth still exist? We dropped firestorms, planet killers, plagues. They should have vanished. A younger senator stood and said, no one checked. We left the battlefield, assuming victory. Silence. Then, the Emperor's voice echoed cold and sharp. Arrogance is always the last enemy. Back on Earth, beneath the surface in a massive underground vault, hundreds of Terran minds linked into one network, the memory core. They weren't just remembering history. They were storing vengeance. Children studied the old wars, not for hate, but for understanding. Machines repaired forests and cities. Humans lived in peace, but trained in silence. On a grassy cliffside, an elder woman in a cloak stood facing the rising sun. Her name was Yelena Gray, one of the original survivors from the Day of Fire. A young child beside her asked, "Why don't we fight them already?" Yelena smiled. "Because we are not just survivors, we are witnesses." To what? She looked at the sky. To what happens when the hunted stop running? Terran Command decided it was time. They opened Earth's orbit to signals and sent a single message to the Zalari Empire. Come see what you failed to erase. 2 days later, a small Zalari diplomatic ship was allowed into Earth's orbit. Captain Vel Rin led the mission, joined by RL-X. As they landed on the Terran surface, they were shocked. The air was clean. The cities were shining. Children laughed in the distance. There were no weapons in sight. And yet they felt afraid, because everywhere were eyes, humans watching. Not with hate, but with memory. A human guide named Milo Kane welcomed them. Tall, calm, dressed in plain clothes, he offered no weapons, no guards. "This is Earth," he said. "What remains of it?" Vel Rin asked, "How did you survive?" Milo smiled slightly. "We didn't." He pointed to the ground. "The ones who lived became something else." They were taken to the Hall of Silence, a massive underground library with walls made of black stone. Inside were holograms of the old Earth, the day it burned. Children were taught using those images. The attack was not hidden. It was remembered. Milo looked at the Zalari officers. You tried to erase a people, but you didn't understand humans. What do you mean? Asked Ralex. Milo's eyes turned serious. You thought we needed mercy, but what we needed ... was time. In another room, the Zalari were shown machines called Echo Forges, built from enemy tech. They could recycle metal from war debris and build new tools, even small starships. You turned our weapons into cities? Velrin asked. Milo nodded. And you turned our fear into education. Meanwhile, on Zalari Prime, citizens were glued to their screens. The visit to Earth was being broadcast live with full transparency. Many wept seeing the images. Children asked their parents, "Why did we do this to them?" For the first time in centuries, the Empire saw not monsters, but survivors. The Terrans showed their guests the Remembrance Garden, a valley of flowers, each one planted for a child lost in the firestorm. Vel-Rin stood silently. Overcome. He finally spoke. "We thought you were gone." Milo replied, "We thought you'd never return. So we made peace without you." As the visit ended, Milo said one last thing. "You came expecting war. We came preparing for truth. If war returns, we will not be the ones who started it." Vel-Rin looked down. "And if peace fails?" Milo looked into the horizon. "Then Earth won't fall again. Next time it will rise." As the Zalari ship left Earth's atmosphere, Ralex whispered to Vel-Rin, "They've become something greater than us." Vel-Rin replied, "They became what we feared they might become. That's why we tried to destroy them. But in the shadows, not all in the Empire wanted peace. Deep within the military intelligence branch, a rogue faction called the Black Pulse activated an ancient weapon hidden beneath Zalari Moon Dr-4. Its purpose: erase Earth permanently. Back on Earth. Kara. Miles received the alert. Enemy weapon charging, the eye warned. Massive energy spike detected. Kara's face turned to stone. They were warned. Terran defense systems powered up, not weapons, but something else. A planetary shield formed around Earth, not of energy, but of gravity distortion, redirecting any incoming mass back toward its source. A mirror of death. As the Black Pulse fired the ancient weapon, the beam curved unnaturally and struck their own base. Drav-4 exploded into dust. Across the galaxy, everyone watched in silence. The message was clear. Earth was no longer defenseless. Admiral Zarn stood before the Emperor. It wasn't an attack. It was a reflection. The Emperor stared at the star map. "We attacked a grave. And the dead didn't stay quiet." Later that night, the Terrans sent one final message. Earth was burned, but from ash, we built memory. You feared what we might become. Now you see. U.S., and we are not done. Aboard Oblivion's Mercy, Kara stood in silence, watching Earth turn slowly below. Her hand touched the glass. "We are what remains," she said softly. The AI spoke. "What now, General?" She turned ... double quotes now ... "We find out if memory is stronger than fear." Long after Earth was burned, long after the war was forgotten by the galaxy, a new generation rose from the ruins. They were not raised by peace. They were not raised by hate. They were raised by memory. In the shadow of the Terran city Ashreach, a massive training academy stood. Its name was Simple Ember Hall. Here, the children of survivors were taught from the moment they could walk, history, science, languages, and war, but not how to start one. How to end it. Inside Ember Hall's central dome, 14-year-old Riven Miles ran through the zero-gravity course. Sweat dripped from his face. His legs pushed off the spinning walls. His hands reached for floating targets. He missed one. The system flashed red. A voice echoed. "Missed again. Cadet, you died." The lights shut off. Darkness. Total silence. Then a soft white light returned. A tall woman in dark uniform stood at the edge. It was General Kara Miles, his aunt. She stared at him coldly. You missed the final node. I was tired, Riven replied. Tired. Gets you killed. He looked down, ashamed. Kara stepped closer. You are not just a boy. You are a legacy. Riven nodded slowly. Later that night, in the Ember Hall library, Riven sat with his friend Sella Quinn, a tech specialist cadet. Her eyes flicked through holograms of Zalari weapons. They fear us, she whispered. Because they remember the war? Riven asked. No, she said. Because we're not angry anymore. We're calm. That's worse. Across the stars, Zalari spies watched Emberhall's training feeds. These are not children, one whispered. They are weapons with hearts. Another replied, they are preparing for a war we haven't even declared. At the same time, deep inside a hidden Zalari science base, a secret experiment continued. Project Sovereign Seed. Using stolen Terran DNA and ancient tech, they were trying to build their own version of the Terrans, fast, strong, emotionless. But something was wrong. The clones kept dying. One Zalari. Scientists screamed in frustration. They survived fire, silence, and isolation, but not cloning. Why? And I replied, because they were not made. They were forged. Back at Emberhall, Riven was chosen for a special mission. General Kara called him into the command room. We're sending you beyond the charts to a system that no longer exists. Why me? Because the Zalari are already there. With him, 4 other cadets were selected. Sella Quinn, tech genius, codebreaker. Torrin Vale, heavy weapons expert, silent and deadly. Nia Vorn, pilot with instincts faster than sensors. Zek Dran, medic and engineer, born in orbit. Together, they boarded the scout ship Ember's Edge. Their mission, investigate the lost system called Vex-9. Vex-9 was once a Terran colony before the War of Silence. Now it was a graveyard. As Embers Edge dropped out of light space, they saw the debris, old ships, burned buildings, and a signal, weak, old human. Inside the ruins, they found a recording pod. They brought it back to the ship and powered it. The hologram of a woman appeared. Her voice shaky, her eyes tired. If you find this, then the fire lived on. We held Vex-9 for 18 years before the final wave came. They took our skies, but we took their fear. We hid something here. Something they feared more than us. Find it. Don't let it stay buried. The hologram ended. The ship shook. Contact, Nia shouted. Zalari fighters incoming. 4, maybe 5. Riven's voice turned calm. Activate stealth shields. Sella, Jen, there comes. Torrin. Stand ready. Nia, evasive flight pattern 3. He didn't hesitate, because this was the moment they were built for. Outside, Zalari fighters circled the ruins. Scout vessel detected, one pilot said. Looks like a Terran design. Should we destroy it? No, surround and board it. But as they approached, the ship vanished. Not exploded. Vanished. Ember single quotes S-Edge slipped into pulse space. A secret tech only Terrans had perfected. They reappeared inside a crater on Vex-9. Hidden. Inside the crater, they found a sealed chamber. Buried under tons of metal. The signal came from within. Zek used his tools to cut through. Inside, they found it. A living AI, ancient. Half-alive. It whispered. I am Ether. Last voice of Vex-9. The AI told them a secret. Before the Empire attacked, Vex-9 scientists were building something. Not a weapon, a mind map, technology that could merge human instinct with AI speed. Creating something neither machine nor man. They never finished it. Until now. The cadets linked AI into Ember's Edge. Suddenly, the ship's systems lit up. Faster, smarter. Alive. Ether online, it said. Let's go home. But the Zalari had found them again. 10 warships surrounded the planet. Ember's Edge, This is Ilari Command. Surrender your vessel. Riven looked at his team. They nodded. No surrender. He turned to Ether. Let's show them what the children of fire can do. The ship blasted upward. Dodging fire, Nia flew like a storm. Sella fired MP bursts. Tauren launched counter-drones. Riven stood in the center, giving orders like a commander twice his age. And then Ether took over part of the flight path. Human instinct. A reflex equals impossible speed. They broke through the blockade. The Zalari couldn't keep up. Even their top pilot crashed trying to follow. One Terran scout ship defeated an entire unit. The message was clear. The new generation is ready. Back at Ember Hall, the team returned to a silent welcome. Kara stood at the gate. You disobeyed direct retreat orders. Yes, General, Riven replied. But you brought back a ghost from the fire. He nodded. She stepped closer. You're ready. For what? To lead. Later that night, in Ember Hall's observatory, Riven looked at the stars. Sella stood beside him. They tried to erase us, she whispered. And now? He asked. She smiled. They're starting to fear our children. In the far reaches of Zalari space, the Emperor watched the Ember's Edge footage. They sent children, he muttered. A general replied, No, sire. They sent legends in the making. Silence. That was all the galaxy knew of Sector 7 Fade, a stretch of dead space, where nothing moved, nothing breathed, and no light ever stayed for long. It was known as the Drift of Bones. Wreckage from old battles floated endlessly. No ships dared go there. Not XEL, ARI. Not even TERRANs. Or so they thought. But deep within that forgotten sector, they waited. The Ghost Fleet. Not a myth. Not a rumor. Real. Aboard the lead ship, TSV Revenant, Admiral Leora Dane walked the silent halls. Her crew wore no insignia, no rank badges. They had no names in records. No families listed. No homeworlds. They were the lost and hidden, the defenders Earth had built in the dark. For 40 years, these ships were built from wreckage, forgotten tech, and Zalari scrap. No one knew they existed, not even most of Terran Command. But now, their time had come. A signal had reached them from Earth. The children are ready. The shadows may now rise. Elsewhere, in the Zalari capital, chaos spread. Attack on Vex 9 had failed. The Terran scout ship, Ember's Edge, escaped against impossible odds, and worst of all, the Terrans weren't angry. They were calm. Organized. And more dangerous than ever. The Emperor summoned a secret war council. Tell me everything we know, he said. A nervous officer replied. They're deploying forces we've never seen before. Where are they coming from? We don't know. Back in Sector 7 Fade, Admiral Dane stood before her fleet. Dozens of ships floated silently. Destroyers, stealth carriers, silent drones, solar pulse vessels, and planetary crawlers, all painted black. All running on zero-emission drives. Each one carried no flag. They were built to be invisible. Until now. Dane turned to her command crew. Activate pulse. A wave of light passed through the sector. For the first time in decades, the fleet lit up. Solar panels opened. Engines warmed. Weapons powered on. Ghosts awakened. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Kara Miles and Riven stood in the vault of voices. An ancient command center hidden beneath Mount Elara. Screens came alive. One by one, ships checked in. Revenant, Shadowfall, Nomad V Iron of 9. Styx-1. All Ghost Fleet ships. Kara whispered. So many. Riven stared in awe. We had this all along? Kara smiled. We didn't just survive. We planned. Aboard Revenant, Admiral Dane received new coordinates. Her mission: move into Zalari-controlled space, not to attack, but to be seen. 2 days later, a small Zalari patrol near the colony world Jurnex 3 picked up strange signals. Unidentified ship entering orbit. What class? No match found. They looked at the screen. It was Revenant. Black, silent, deadly. Then more ships appeared. Dozens. No comes. No threats. Just silence. Watching. Waiting. Xela. Our eye citizens looked to the sky and saw death and silence. Children asked, "Are they here to destroy us?" But the fleet didn't move, didn't fire, didn't speak. They simply existed, and that was enough. Zalari High Council panicked. One general shouted, "We must strike first." Another said, "Strike what? They haven't attacked." But they could. They're everywhere. And it was true. Across neutral sectors, in forgotten systems, the ghost fleet started appearing. Never firing, just arriving, and reminding the galaxy. Humans never forgot. Back on Ember's edge, Riven and his team were now part of Operation Eclipse. A mission to deliver Ether, the recovered AI, into the Ghost Fleet's core system. They docked with Revenant. For the first time, Riven stood on a Terran warship built entirely in secret. Sella whispered, "This feels bigger than Earth." And it was. Admiral Dane met them on the bridge. "You're the ones who found the Echo AI," she said. Riven nodded. "We didn't know this fleet existed." She smiled faintly. "No one does. Not even most of Earth's own commanders." "Why?" Sella asked. Dane's voice turned firm. "Because trust is earned after survival. And survival was just the beginning." As Ether integrated into the Ghost Fleet's core systems, something changed. The AI whispered, "So much pain, so much silence." Dane responded, "We use the silence as armor." Ether replied, "Then I will become your voice." Now, the fleet had something new. An AI with memory, a mind forged in fire, and it would speak when the time was right. Meanwhile, in deep Solari military space, plans were underway for Project Suncrash, a final solution, a bomb the size of a moon. Meant for Earth. But for Hope. If detonated in neutral space, the blast would wipe out not just Terran fleets, but trust itself. The Empire didn't want a war. They wanted fear to return. But Terrans were listening. One of Riven's team, Zekdran, hacked a Zalari relay from orbit. They found the plans. Kara Miles received the data and passed it to Ghost Fleet. Command. They had one option: reveal themselves. Completely. To everyone. The Terrans broadcasted a message galaxy-wide. "We are not your threat. We are your memory. We rise not to conquer, but to remind. We are the fleet built from silence. And if you build fear, we will become your end." The message spread like fire. Some alien races applauded. Some panicked. Some joined the cause. But the Zalari? They did not pause. Project Suncrash was launched into neutral space. Target: Ghost Fleet rendezvous. Time: 16 hours. Riven, aboard Revenant, stared at the screen. "We can't outrun that." Dane replied, "No, but we don't have to." She turned to Ether. "Can you control it?" The AI's voice turned cold. "Give me 6 hours, and their moon becomes our blade." The Ghost Fleet moved like shadows. Silent, precise. As the Suncrash bomb entered final approach, Revenant deployed mirror nodes, gravity-distorting satellites designed for ship cloaking. Now they bent more than light. They bent mass. At 10 minutes to detonation, the bomb vanished from Zalari sensors. They thought it detonated. They cheered. Until it reappeared in Zalari orbit, pointed downward. On the activated. And controlled by Terran code. The Zalari Emperor screamed, "Who turned it? Who?" The Terran response: "You taught us war. We perfected memory. Stand down, or fall to your own fear." At the last second, the Ghost Fleet disarmed the bomb. They didn't need to destroy. They only needed to be heard. Now, across the stars, everyone knew. The humans were back. Stronger. United. And watching. Later, in the silent chamber aboard Revenant, Admiral Dane stood with Riven and Kara Miles. "This isn't the end," Dane said. "It's the beginning." Riven asked. Of what? She looked to the stars. Of the age of ghosts, where silence protects peace, and memory defends the living. The stars shifted, the darkness trembled, and for the first time in centuries, Terran ships entered the very heart of the Zalari Empire. But they came not with fire, they came with silence. The Ghost Fleet, led by TSV Revenant, arrived just outside the capital system of Zelmira, a star so old it barely glowed. Every scanner in the system lit up red. Alarms screamed, warships moved. Shields raised. On the bridge of the Zalari command fortress, Supreme Commander Vikthal stood frozen. They're here, he whispered. His officers looked at the map. Dozens of Terran ships, silent, powered down, weapons offline. They're not attacking. One said, they're waiting. Inside the Ghost Fleet command, Admiral Liara Dane stared at the screen. Riven stood beside her. They expected a fight. He said. Dane nodded. Double quotes. We gave them a message instead. Sella's voice came from the console. Zalari fleet locked. On us. Targeting systems active. Riven glanced at Dane. Her reply was cold and calm. Let them look. Let them fear. We're not here for war. General Kara Miles appeared on the holoscreen from Earth. Do you trust them not to fire? She asked. Dane paused. Double quotes. No, but I trust us to be ready. Suddenly, a transmission came from the Zalari capital. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a demand. It was an invitation. To the Terran command, the Emperor requests a meeting. No weapons, no soldiers, one ship, one voice. Riven stepped forward. I'll go. Dane looked at him. You sure? He nodded. They're not afraid of you anymore. They're afraid of what we're becoming. That's why they want me. Dane studied his face. Young.com. Terran. She gave a short nod. Take Ember's Edge. Don't be late. As the small ship entered the glowing orbit of Zelmira Prime, the galaxy held its breath. For the first time ever, a human would walk inside the Imperial Citadel. No army. No threat. Just history. And truth. Inside the Citadel, the Great Hall stood. Cold and massive, walls of living stone, columns that touched the sky. The Zalari Emperor, tall and ancient, waited on the throne made from bones of extinct beasts. He looked at Riven. You are younger than I imagined. Riven stepped forward. And you're older than your empire looks. Guards flinched. The Emperor raised a hand. Smiled slightly. You speak boldly. Good. I feared your kind had lost that edge. Riven looked him in the eye. Why did you burn? Earth, silence. A long one. Then the Emperor spoke. Because we feared your chaos, your fire, your unpredictability. But we never attacked you. No, but you grew too fast. Your hunger frightened the stars, so we erased you. Riven's jaw clenched. But you failed. The Emperor nodded slowly. Yes, and now, you are stronger, quieter, sharper. He stepped down from the throne. This meeting is not just for peace, it is for memory. I want to show you something. They walked through ancient halls. Deep below the palace, into a room hidden from all sensors. Inside, a map. But not of stars. Of lives. The Emperor pointed. These are Terrans who were captured, not killed. We studied them. Some still live. Riven froze. You kept humans alive like test subjects. The Emperor did not flinch. Yes and no. We feared what you could become, but we also admired it. You are pain made into will. Riven stared at the list. One name caught his eye. Talia Miles. His mother. She's alive? He asked, his voice shaking. The Emperor nodded. In deep cryo. We studied her mind for decades. It resisted everything. Her will nearly broke our machines. Riven stepped back. He wasn't just here for peace anymore. He was here to bring her home. Back aboard Ember's Edge, Sella and the crew received a signal from Riven, encrypted. Short. She's here. Plan eclipse fire. Move now. The Ghost Fleet responded instantly. Dane gave the order. Wake the shadows. Back in the Citadel, alarms blared. Unauthorized retrieval in cryo vault. A voice screamed. The Emperor turned, furious. You brought an army? Riven didn't answer, he just stared back, cold as space. Double quotes. No, I brought family. In the cryo vault, Ghost Fleet infiltration drones had already breached security. Sella and Zek entered from orbit via drop-pod. They found Talia Miles. Frozen but alive. A legend. A survivor. A mother. They activated the pod's recovery protocol. Outside, Zelari forces surrounded Ember's edge. Stand down. Came the order. Riven replied, overcomes. We came for truth. You gave it, but you also kept our blood in cages. We don't forget. Suddenly, the sky above Zelmira turned black. Dozens of Ghost Fleet ships entered orbit, but still, they didn't fire. They just hovered. Watching. Waiting. Protecting. Inside the palace, the Emperor stood still. You could destroy us now. Riven stared at him. But we won't. That's the difference. The old ruler lowered his head. Then the galaxy truly has changed. Riven and his team escaped with Talia Miles. The Ghost Fleet withdrew, not in war, but in victory. A victory of will. Of memory. Of mercy. Back on Earth, Talia was awakened. Her eyes opened slowly. She saw Kara. She saw Riven, and she smiled. You look just like him, she whispered. Who? Riven asked. Your father. He died to protect me. To protect us all. Riven held her hand. You're safe now. Later, Kara and Admiral Dane stood in the Earth Command Tower. The Zelari blinked. Dane said. They didn't just blink, Kara replied. They backed down. And now? Now we lead. Not just through strength, but through presence. Across the stars, a new Terran signal echoed. A new message, not of war, but of watchfulness. We are not gods. We are not conquerors. We are what comes after fire. We are the memory of survival. The edge of empire belongs to all. In the dark corners of forgotten space, others listened. Old enemies. New allies. Strange civilizations. And they all whispered the same word now. Terrans. Space was quiet. Too quiet. After the Ghost Fleet's exit from Zelari space, the stars had gone still. The galaxy was watching, waiting, wondering. Would the Terrans strike? But Earth didn't strike. They built, they listened, and they remembered. Deep inside the Earth's secret defense core, a vault beneath the Pacific Ocean, Talia Miles walked for the first time in decades. Cryoscars marked her skin. But her mind was clear. She remembered the screams when the Zelari burned her colony. She remembered the fall, and now she saw how far humans had come. Everything's changed, she whispered. Her son, Riven, stood beside her. Yes, because you survived. Across the stars, change was happening. The Zelari Empire, shaken by shame and exposed secrets, faced rebellion on 5 major worlds. Old allies turned away. New ones turned toward Earth. The Terrans had done the impossible. They won without war, but that peace was fragile. Because somewhere out in the darkness, the final pulse was coming. A shock across the Esteres, in a hidden sector far beyond known systems. Ghost Fleet ship TSV Nullwake disappeared. No distress signal. No wreckage. Just gone. Admiral Leora Dane received the report with cold eyes. Check for cloaked movement, she ordered. The scans returned one word, unknown. Soon after, more ships vanished. 1 from the Ether System. 2 from the Jernex Rim. 4 more near the Drift of Bones. No pattern. No survivors. Then. A signal was found, but not from a ship, from a pulse. ASOUND WAVE. Ancient. Encrypted. Not. Terran, not Zilari, something else. Earth Command held emergency session. General Kara. Miles stared at the waveform on the screen. This pulse ... It's not just a message, she said. It's a summon. Riven, now a senior operative, leaned forward. Who would answer it? Talia's voice, quiet and sure. Something older than either of us. The origin of HFY, through ancient records recovered by Ether. The Ghost Fleet decoded the pulse. It matched a signal sent over 10,000 years ago. By humans. Before the fall. A desperate call for help during the first Zilari attack. But that signal had been intercepted. Twisted. Changed. Now it was returning like an echo from something that had heard and adapted. Dane stood before the Fleet Council. It's not an attack, it's worse, she said. It's a mirror. Kara frowned. Explain. We called out once, something answered, and now it sends back our fear. But louder. Enter. The Pulse ENTITY scouts were sent. Only one returned. The pilot, shaking, described it in broken words. It's not a ship. It's not alive, but it remembers everything. Every Terran scream, every Zilari lie, it feeds on history. They called it the final pulse, a living frequency, a machine, made of broken code and forgotten pain, formed from the dark matter of ruined stars, created from our own signal. The CHOIC Earth had two choices: run, and let the pulse devour systems across the galaxy. Or face it, not with weapons, but with what made Terrans different. Memory. Riven stood before the fleet. Maybe we created this, he said. But that also means we can end it. Talia stepped beside him. We survived fire once. We can survive the echo of it. Dane gave the order. All ships, prepare for final protocol. Project Mirrorlight. The PLA in Ether, now upgraded and connected to all Ghost Fleet ships, would create a counterpulse. One not of fear, but of hope. Every ship, every survivor, every moment of Terran resistance turned into signal. Not a weapon to destroy the pulse, a mirror to remind it what humans really were. Not victims, not monsters. Memory that lives. The last battle without a single Sothote fleet approached the source. Starless region. No light. No matter. Just. The pulse. A structure without shape. It shimmered like static. Cried like metal. It screamed in every human voice ever recorded. Children. Soldiers. Mothers. Fathers. The sound crushed weaker minds. Ships buckled. One captain took her own life. But the fleet did not turn back. Ether began the upload. Ship by ship, memory by memory. The last stand of Mars Base Echo, the rescue of Vex 9, Riven's first jump flight, Talia's survival in cryo, Kara's command under fire. Each moment was streamed into the pulse. Ether's voice grew louder. You are not truth. You are noise. We are truth. We are the story that keeps going. The pulse howled. It warped and twisted. It tried to copy again. This time, it failed. Because Terrans weren't just pain. They were choice. They were change. And the pulse could not adapt to that. With a final flash of silence, the entity shattered. Not in fire, but in stillness. It was gone. And with it, the ghost of humanity's greatest fear. The afterrem across the galaxy. Ships stopped fighting. Zilari ships powered down neutral worlds, sent gifts to Earth. The war that never officially started was over. Back on Earth, Riven stood on the ocean shore. The wind quiet. Talia beside him. You think it's really gone? He asked. She smiled. Fear never goes away. But now, it knows our name. Kara, now Supreme Commander, addressed the galaxy. We are humans. We remember everything. And because we remember, we change. That is our power. That is our peace. We were a story. Now we are the ones who write them. And so ended the first great war of memory. Without a bomb. Without a gun. With truth. And with Terrans standing not as shadows anymore, but as light. The end.